As 2022 draws to a close, let's take a look at some of the stories that made national headlines. Political commentator Keith Leslie joining us now with his thoughts. Keith, let's start with the economy. Canadians are struggling with record high inflation, many struggling just to put food on the table, and home ownership has become unattainable for millions of Canadians. Has the federal government done enough to help ordinary Canadians?
Well, inflation is, of course, a global problem, and there's very little a federal government in Canada can do to offset that. I mean, we're caught up in the global economy. The Bank of Canada's high interest rate policy has, of course, helped cool the housing market fairly quickly, but housing prices, even though they're coming down some, are still far, far out of reach for far too many Canadians. I think, COVID-type relief checks would really help an awful lot of people right now with inflation, but I don't think the government can afford to even consider doing that.
I think you're right. Now, let's talk healthcare. Canada's premiers seem to agree our healthcare system is in crisis. So why can't they reach a deal with the federal government?
Well, I think the federal government is more than prepared to up its share of healthcare funding to the provinces, but it wants to put some strings to it. It wants to make sure that money is going to healthcare. The feds are very worried that they give the provinces some money and they'll turn around like Doug Ford did and start giving rebates on license plate fees. Ford government even ran a surplus during the pandemic. So the federal government wants to make sure if they're going to give the provinces more money for healthcare, that it goes to healthcare. And the provinces, of course, see that as an invasion on their territory, that it's their right to spend healthcare dollars how they see fit.
I see. The war in Ukraine has galvanized Canadians from coast to coast, but it's also highlighted critical gaps in the Canadian Army. What lessons have been learned from Russia's invasion of Ukraine?
Well, Canada military, not surprised, it feels it doesn't have the proper equipment to fight a war if should ever happen to have to do so. Right now, they're seeing, though, in Ukraine that Canada, is very short of the equipment we're seeing being sent to Ukraine. Anti-aircraft missiles, anti-tank missiles, and something to deal with the drones. Drones, a whole new type of warfare that Canada, I guess, is ill-prepared for. The problem is other countries are coming to the same realization, so all this military equipment is going to be harder to come by and much more expensive.
I want to ask you one more thing. Prime Minister Trudeau returned to power with a Liberal minority in the last election. He has secured a Liberal NDP coalition. Could we still potentially be facing another federal election in 2023? And if so, how much of a threat could Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre be?
Well, it seems less likely now since Poilievre won the Conservative leadership so decisively earlier this year. Justin Trudeau seems very anxious to take on Poilievre, and he said, in fact, now he'll lead the Liberals into a fourth election. There had been some talk, Mr. Trudeau might step aside in 2023 and make way for a new Liberal leader to lead them into that next election, but he says now he wants to take on Poilievre. Poilievre is a much better communicator than many people give him credit for. And today, for example, he in a very timely manner said he criticized the Liberals, what he called their catch and release bail policy. He's a good communicator and is a threat to Trudeau.
All right. Thank you so much, Keith. We appreciate your time and insights. That's political commentator Keith Leslie.
Thank you.